I do know that the guy that used to be on MSNBC, Chris Matthews, he used to refer to it not as Skype. He always called it the skip. So we have got which is fine. You know that there are people that like Zoom, and I whenever somebody tells me Zoom, I always go to the video recorder that I've got down the hallway. But so we have got a great guest we are going to go to here in just a few moments. Barbra Joy Hansen is going to be with us here in just a few seconds. She is amazing. And I believe the fantastic Roger Homefield will be with us here in a few moments. According to the skip, he supposedly has dialed in here. So I think we will be joined by Mr. Homefield imminently, as they say.
By who would you?
So let's start at the top of the show here. You are listening, of course, to the world famous Jiggy Jaguar radio program, live on 50 plus AM FM stations across the country and around the world, and iHeartRadio on demand archived audio. Yes, it's that show. I can't say the P word. It is available via TalkShoe and iHeartRadio. And Barbra Joy Hansen is with us today. She is an award-winning author. She's a speaker. She has survived incest, clergy sexual assault, rape, domestic sexual assault. Holy smokes. And she joins us here on our big broadcast. She has also been on the Dr. Oz show with 20 survivors of sexual assault and harassment in New York City. She has been all over the damn place. So, Barbra, tell me and Roger a little bit about your story, and I know that Roger and I will have some questions for you.
Sure. I was raised in a home of a pastor. I had a wonderful, safe home, so I thought. Leave it to Beaver home, although none of us have that. And nobody knew what I had gone through. And I was in so much shame, blame, denial. A child that has been taken by herself at around the age of 2 or 3 till 8 by my grandfather, who unzipped himself in the car, and I was screaming to get out of the car, and he was always out of ice cream. He must have eaten it up before we came, and he always singled me out. And then at age 8, I shut down from him and didn't go near him again, and that shut him down. I decided in this little kid's mind that I wouldn't go near him, and then I went to a Christian camp, youth camp, when I was 11 and 12, 2 summers in a row, and I was violated by a youth pastor that was 27 when I was 11, and he traumatized several of my friends as well. And I didn't talk about it. Nobody brought it up in our home. Nobody talked about those kind of things back in the day. And sexual abuse is a double sickness causing the death of a little girl's soul. It produces guilt and shame and fear and anxiety and sadness. I couldn't do schoolwork very good, even though I studied for tests. It causes withdrawal and isolation, panic attacks. I had nightmares in the middle of the night. I would scream, and my mother would come in and rock me. And I would say, "You're not my mother," in the middle of a deep sleep. So post-traumatic stress disorder is traumatic amnesia. You can't recall it until you decide to bring it up. And it's just a nightmare.
So, Roger, listening to all this, I know you've probably got some questions for Ms. Hansen.
Well, first I want to thank her on behalf of all the good people in this country, where you got people that step up like Barbra does. She's a great American citizen. She cares about her fellow man. There are two people, there's tons of people that want to help people and people that want to hurt people.
That's right.
Barbra Hansen obviously is one that very much wants to help people. Barbra, when did you first become an activist like this? I mean, what was the first thing you did? You write a book, or what was the first thing you did that got you started as far as being an entity?
Yes, I did write my book, but before that, the evil was exposed in 1990. 8. I went back to the camp where I had been violated by this clergy, and we have a cabin there. So, we'd go back, and my parents had a cabin, and we'd enjoy it, go to the lake and enjoy the lake and all. But I saw a friend I hadn't seen in 27 years who had been violated by the same clergy. And when I saw her, she had just gotten out of drug rehab. She was a pastor's kid like me. She was a pastor's wife. And she said, she poked me on the arm and started weeping and weeping. And I knew she'd gone through trauma. And when I said his name, she said, yes, me too. So when she got back to Ohio where she lived, she told her pastor's wife, who used to be a camp director at this particular camp years ago. And she contacted me and she said, we need to expose this man. We need to bring him into account for his wickedness. So I wrote a letter to the denomination, and she did as well. And the Colorado Springs denomination, the Christian Missionary Alliance denomination, formed a committee with 8 clergy. They had never gone through something like this. Most of them were elderly, and I had never gone through it. And for me to walk in the room and see him, this was back in the 1950s, and now I was in my mid-40s, and no stone was unturned. The clergy that formed the committee, the discipline hearing committee, brought him in and questioned him, and he was in so much denial and said he didn't do it, he may have brushed against us, blah, blah, blah. So that was the beginning. 1 year prior, in 1997, missionary kids in Mama Alliance Academy in Gabon, Guinea, South Africa, in a boarding school, were separated from their parents. For the sake of the gospel, these kids were sacrificed. The moms and dads thought they were protected in the remote jungle in Africa where there was no communication, no phones. The adults did all kinds of abuse, including sexual abuse, and pulled the teeth and put the kids' hands behind their backs and did all sorts of things. And so they formed this committee, and with the Mama Alliance committee, and they said, there's no prevention. Is there a cover-up? We need to get an independent counsel or an investigation to talk to these adult kids now. And they said, what will it cost us? What if we go through lawsuits? Will these adult children that were children back in the day need therapy? Will we be embarrassed? Will there be lawsuits? No, we need to do the right thing. So they brought these kids to a retreat, adult kids, to a retreat center, and the stories started collaborating and coming out. Now, that was 1 year before I came forward. Mine was in 1998, and it was just 1 year earlier with this denomination that walked me through it. So that was the beginning. And after I faced the clergy, the head of the committee came out of the room, and the sex offender was in the room. The psychiatrist was sitting to my right. He was sitting to his right. And the sex offender said, I don't know if you can find it in your heart to forgive me. And I said, forgive you? I was already teaching my Beauty Out of Ashes with addicts group that helps survivors come clean with their secrets. And so I understood a little bit more than the others that were there. There were 4 of us, 3 other women. And the head of the committee walked out of the room, and he looked at the sex offender and he said, you better listen to the cries of the children. When I heard that, I thought, if I ever write a book, the name of my book is going to be Listen to the Cry of the Child. And that's what I named it. Within 7 weeks, I got a call from the head of the committee telling me, sit down. I've got some news to tell you. He said, this man that you just faced 7 weeks ago fell down the stairs and broke his back and died. I did my part. I chose to forgive, and he died 7 weeks after I forgave him and faced him. So I don't hold any anger against him because I've already dealt with all that. And I teach a chapter on anger. I teach on hidden secrets and power and control and what the sex offender's like and why he does what he did. Pedophiles, any inappropriate behavior with children It could be verbal, visual, psychological, physical. That isn't supposed to happen, but a lot happened in their childhood. They may have been molested, but that doesn't mean that it's okay for me to molest others.
Wow. Home field. What do you have here, baby?
Yeah, no, there's a lot. Well, I've got several questions. First, Barbara, is child abuse, has it been on the rise or simply gotten more exposed?
It's been hidden for so long, and it still is. My book isn't just my story. I've got answers and awareness in my book. I've got how to heal, and how to come forward with your secrets. If you don't acknowledge what's wrong with you, I had spiritual abuse happen in my church, and in a church we no longer go to. And I was questioned by the clergy that made me feel less than. He put himself above me, and that's spiritual abuse. My call to ministry was questioned. He said, "You're not healthy enough." I had to document every phone call, every person I met that came to my door. These are man-made rules, and that's the law. And we have to be worthy to be approved? I don't think so. Performance-based behavior was questioned, and that hit me again emotionally and spiritually. So everywhere I look, 1 out of 3 women, 1 out of 5 men have been violated sexually. 97% are in prison for sexual crimes and sexual sins. And it's crippling to your soul. And until you realize what happened to you and why it happened and grieve your losses, grieving for me was huge. When I wrote my book, I used pain journals that I had hidden. I was afraid that somebody would find them if I died. So when I started writing my book, I couldn't stop. I wrote and wrote and wrote for a whole week. I wrote my book in 1 week. And using the pain journals, I had all the pain from my husband's cheating on me, things that happened with me with pornography with my husband, doing that. And my soul was already shattered. So our marriage vows were broken. The pain sent me reeling, and it was a huge loss. The rug was jerked out from underneath my feet. My husband was in denial because his father committed suicide, so he didn't deal with his secrets. I didn't deal with mine for 38. He was 40 years. Men don't usually talk about these kind of things, and premature forgiveness keeps us stuck. So I prematurely forgave him, and I was watching him like a hawk. That didn't work. I had to heal. This little girl, the death of a little girl's soul had to be brought forward, and I had to look at myself and heal before he could get help and heal. And I sent him to a therapist, and that helped. And we're still together. We're married 58 years.
Wow. We have got a great guest with us today. Barbra Hansen joins us live here on our big program. And you're joining us this week here on iHeartRadio, also AMFM247.com. Tune in, iTunes, on-demand archived audio available at TalkShoe, and iHeartRadio video available on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, and, of course, Clout Hub. And as I always like to say, Clout Hub, whatever the hell that is. And Roger Homefield is with us today, and he joins us along with Barbra Hansen. So I'm going to go back to Roger. Roger, what? You're doing great,
Well,
baby.
Yeah, no, Barbara's, she's laying it out, the classic child abuse that we know about. And so I've got a little twist to a question for you, Barbara. Because what's also child abuse is the way the kids have been treated the last few years with the pandemic, with the masks, the this and the that. So my question to you, it's a bit of a taking the left here, but how do you feel about flamboyant drag queens or transgenders confusing 7-year-old kids in school? Because, I mean, at any time before this era of insanity, that would have been considered child abuse. And so is the left normalizing, and it's not really the same question, but is the left trying to normalize pedophilia?
Well, you talk about trans or gays or lesbians or all those those are the ones that come to me at prison conferences and domestic violence conferences and Walmart when I'm sitting out fundraising. They've all been abused in one way or the other. They've been shattered. So I don't know. I'm a straight woman and love my husband, and I believe marriage is recognized in the Bible in the heart of a man or a woman. They should be together, but I can't speak for them. But because that's they want to become somebody that maybe they aren't. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but I've got many friends that are different than I am. And those are the ones that I believe Jesus went to. He went to the outcasts and the underdog and those that were shamed. Shame says I did something wrong. Blame says something wrong is wrong with me. Shame says I did a bad thing. Blame says I am the bad person. If you take that in as a person, you're going to stay shamed. So you've got to deal with your own stuff and unearth it, and unearth the pot that's been buried for so long in order to heal. A lot of people don't want to, and they say, I'd never forgive like you did. How could you forgive? Well, I don't tell people they have to forgive. That's between them and the person. But if you hold onto that ember of hatred that you are holding onto and don't forgive that person, and I did have an unbelievable experience to do that, you're going to hold the ember in your hands and not let go.
Barbara, there are those that would say that confusing a young child, as young as 7, really, I don't know why they're talking about any of this in school at any level, but there are those that would say that to confuse a 7-year-old about his or her gender and to put that confusion in their minds when they're not even anywhere near puberty, they would call that child abuse also.
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile that? In other words, it's two different areas, but yet not really.
I know. It's very hard to separate the child from the offense or from who they think they are, because I don't think they really know who they are at 6, 7, 8 years old. I sure didn't. And right. I was targeted. I was violated. There was a void in my soul. And, Leviticus 18:6 says, "Thou shalt not uncover thy nakedness with next of kin." That's very clear in Scripture. So for me, I didn't know who I was until I became an adult, until I started figuring it all out. I wrote my book and all the secrets started pouring out. Like I said, I used the pain journals. And, I now work in mental health, and I help people uncover the shame in teaching a support group called Beauty Out of Ashes. And I'm an award-winning author, speaker, mental health advocate, NASCA Stop Child Abuse co-host show. And I believe all these things happen to me for me to have a God-given purpose. Not that I would choose to go through any of that again, but I'm different. I'm the one that helps one person. I'm the one that goes to the alcoholic that is panhandling, and I don't give them money. I usually give them food, or I gave a man that was panhandling on the corner of the highway 2 gift cards I had in my car, and he said, "Ma'am, I don't want that. I want money." And I couldn't believe it. I walked away. He said, "I'm staying in the whole hotel over here." His sign said homeless. So he was deceiving everybody.
Barbara, I had an incident like that happen a couple years ago when myself and a few people went to a convention in Vegas, and we were coming back in the car, and we stopped off in Arizona at I think it was a Del Taco is what it was, because I love Del Taco. And we stopped off at the Del Taco, and because my lovely significant other doesn't understand the way the world works, she over-ordered a bunch of food. So we had tacos, burritos, the whole 9 yards sitting there. And there was no way that me and Brittany and Bob were going to eat all these goddamn tacos. And there was a gentleman that had come in, and he was going from table to table to table. And he was talking about how he was hungry, he was homeless, he, hadn't eaten in days, all these things. And he got to our table, and Brittany looked at him, and she goes, "You can have anything you want on the table, and I'll even go get you a drink. You can have anything you want on the table." And he goes, "I don't want any of that. I want a number 6. And he points to the menu. And she's like, "We've got everything here. We've got burritos, Sanchos, tostadas, whatever the hell you want." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't want any of that. I want a number 6. And we finally were just like, "Okay, I can't help you. We got food here, brother." So I completely understand what you're saying there, Barbara, with the, "I don't want that. I want a gift card." Fairly recently, my mother went through a Walmart parking lot, and there was a woman there with her children, and they were, they had the sign, they had all the stuff.
Yeah.
And she rolled up to them, and they made some comment about how they needed milk. And she goes, "I will go in and get you some milk. What do you want?" And she goes, "I don't want the milk. I want the money."
Right.
So I completely understand what you were saying, Barbara. Go ahead and pick up where you left off there, my friend.
Yeah, you don't know where it's going to go to. For a while, we were taking in addicts. In my support group, I teach. We had a lot of addicts coming in our home. I rescued. My addiction was rescuing unhealthy people. And we took in a heroin addict right out of prison that we had met in prison and went to the crack house he was using in and brought him into our home, in and out of our home over a period of about 8 years. Was that the right thing to do? No. But did I learn about his world? Yes. He learned about mine. And he overdosed in 1995 and died. I tried to help him, but I realize now you can't help anybody but yourself. If you're willing to help yourself and, get clean from whatever you went through, or, whatever is hurting you or still harming you, the training for me has been extremely costly. And, your life then becomes the hospital ward where you're taught the divine art of comfort. You'll be wounded so that you can bind up the wounds of others. And I was trying to bind up everybody's wounds, but I was bleeding. I was like the Samaritan that, the robber that stopped on the side of the road and robbed the person, and then the Good Samaritan came along and put first aid on their wounds in Scripture. So I was afflicted in the same way they were, but I can't help them unless I'm whole. People try to, but they can't. And a lot of my friends go to AA, they go to SA, sexual assault, sexual abuse, addictions groups. A lot of those places are hookups. Maybe they help them. I don't know, but I know that for me, myself, and I have gone to a couple meetings because a couple of my friends in my group that were addicts go, and they get the coins. Does the coin really clean them up? Does 6 months going into a rehab clean them up? Maybe it cleans them up, but does it get that soul wound healed? That's the part I'm talking about, healing your wounds.
Barbara, you're a very forgiving person. That's come out in your interviews. And so a couple things jump out at me. There would be some people that if they had your experience with the clergy abuse, they would resent the church. They would turn against the church. They would turn against religion. You clearly have not done that. You are still reaping all the positive things about the church and religion, and you've been able to forgive, I suppose, and have a clear separation. Could you enlighten us about that?
It's like a double-edged sword for me. I started teaching in the church. It was an African American church that we no longer go to, but we're members of. And I started teaching my group for a couple of years in there, and I taught it for about 9 years. But for me, you don't have to go to church to be a believer. My faith is strong, and is stronger now than it ever was. What really helped heal me was not only writing my book, grieving my losses. Sexual abuse or sexual assault is a death, or a death-like experience. It's like the dark night of a soul, C.S. Lewis. So until you comprehend what happened to you and realize how you can help yourself, and that's what I help others, I don't go to church anymore, but my husband and I got the 12-step recovery devotional Bible from this heroin addict before he went back to prison. And we can't get enough of it because it helps us understand Scripture in a different way than we've ever understood it before. So my husband and I have our devotions every day reading that 12-step Bible, and that's what really saved my life, unbeknownst to the heroin addict that we tried to help.
Wow. You sure get involved with some heavy stuff, Barbara.
You don't even know.
Well, I just saw a few interviews, and I understand, but you've come out of a very bad experience, and you've turned a very big negative into a wonderful positive, not just for you, but for perhaps thousands.
Yeah, I had an experience. I was invited with my husband to go to the Philippines 6 years ago as a humanitarian aid worker. We were there for 2 months. The missionary pastor said, I don't want you to just come for a weekend or a week. I want you to get your feet wet. Every single day you'll be speaking. So he had me going into the jungles, remote jungles where ISIS was hiding behind bushes, and our kids were a little bit frightened, saying, what's mom going to do, with ISIS there? And they're similar to what's going on in the world today. But the missionary said, ISIS knows us well. And this was in the jungle at the Father's House orphanage where we were. My husband was working with the kids and building pens to keep the sheep and the goats in so they could raise them and get money for the animals that they raised. But the missionary said, ISIS knows us well. When you're there, they run when they see you there because guardian angels are all around you, surrounding you. And when they see those guardian angels, they run. So I felt protected. We were out late at night many times. My husband would come home from the school late, and we felt really protected. And we planted a lot of seeds. Every day I'd speak in a different place, on the streets, in the orphanage. I involved the kids with a skit that we had and gave them each one of my books. I gave the pastors in the remote jungles my Beauty Out of Ashes support material. They had never seen anything like that. They'd never read a book like mine before. So I'm very privileged to have gone to places like that. And a documentary was made of my life in the Philippines from the 700 Club show. So for me, I'm very, very happy that I was able to have that experience and do what I did for all that long time. So I want to tell you a couple of new things. I have a Wiki Alpha page. I just was on the cover of the Newswire magazine with my story inside with the Wiki Alpha page in there. And my YouTube documentary from the 700 Club show is in that magazine as well. So it's Newswire magazine, and I'm on the cover of the magazine, and my story is inside with all these other links that you could get.
I guess one person can make a difference, huh, Jiggy?
Yes, very much so. We have got a great guest with us today. Barbra Hansen joins us here on our big broadcast, and the fantastic Roger Homefield as well. So, Barbra, how do we get your books and everything that you're doing?
Well, if you want a personally signed copy of it, you can email me I don't know if you have my email. Yes, you do. BobbyJoyHansen@juno.com. You can go on my website, listentothecry.org, and contact me there. My email's on that as well. All this information that I just gave you with the Wiki Alpha page and the Newswire magazine is on my website. We've updated it. And as soon as you get this show done, we can put that on my website as well. So my book is $20 plus shipping. I shipped a copy to New Zealand about 3 months or so ago. The woman didn't have money to buy it, so I shipped it to her, and I shipped my support material to her, and it's helped her tremendously. My books have gone worldwide, globally, and they've gone into prisons. I've spoken at the Louisiana prison in Angola State Penitentiary. My mother passed away at that time when I was there, and we were in chapel, and an inmate came up and saw me crying. I had just received the news my mother died, and she was 90, almost 96, lived a long life. She was also violated by my grandfather, and I helped my mother heal before God took her home to be with him. And an inmate saw me crying and came over, asked me what was wrong, and I told him what happened. He was a murderer, and he said, "Can I pray with you?" So inside that prison in Angola State Penitentiary, the inmates have a rodeo. People come in from the outside and watch this rodeo, and the inmates, they might be clowns or have jewelry made. They give them knives to cut the jewelry because most of them have turned their lives around and have deep faith such as I do. And I've learned a lot from, all these opportunities that the doors are opening for me. And I want to thank you for having me on your show today, because every single time my voice is heard, somebody might be listening in the middle of the night and turns your show on or my website and goes on there and sees it, and they're going to get help and healing from it.
Fantastic. So, Roger, as we wrap up here, what else do you have for Barbra?
Well, I just wish we had a lot more of her. We need more people like Barbra across all the spectrums of things, ills that are in the society. But she's taking up a cause that you don't really, when you consider how prevalent it is, and I don't think a lot of people that are not involved with this sort of thing have any clue just how prevalent it really, really is. And, we've got civics courses that are lacking in school. We should have that, but maybe there should be some classes on what's expected, what is legal, what's morally correct as far as sexual behavior, and just in terms of growing up, that no, it's not natural for somebody to be touching you. Maybe children should be getting some of these lessons in school. And that's kind of why I brought up that other thing before about what's going on with the 7-year-olds with the gender, because it just kind of seems like they kind of butt heads, those two issues there somewhat. But I think it's terrific what you're doing. And
Thank you.
I just hope you can get out there a lot, and that there'll be a lot more Jiggies to have you on as well.
Yeah, I really want to get on one of these big shows like Gayle King and, Good Morning America, or one of those shows. They have other authors on. There's no reason why they couldn't have me on. So that's what I'm hoping for, and I will be someday.
Well, Barbra, you are amazing. Thank you for spending as much time as you did with me and Roger. And
Thank you.
I look forward to chatting with you soon. And Roger Homefield, we will talk to you on Thursday, sir.
Thank you. Barbra, a real pleasure to meet you, and Jiggy, a pleasure as always.
Definitely. Well, Barbra, thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to everybody soon. There goes the fantastic Roger Homefield and Barbra Hansen. That is that.